5 Live Boxing.
It's not often that you get 2 nights of boxing separated by, well, a bit of road, but massive nights of boxing. It was a double header in British rings on Saturday night. One in Manchester and one in Nottingham. And I bring you a joyous Joyce, an emotional Joseph Parker and Andy Lee, and the promoter Frank Warren. We get an inevitable update on Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. And then I give you 2 people that won versions of the world title. As I said, it was a very moving and emotional and fast evening of boxing on Saturday. Terry Harper and Maxi Hughes, the real Cinderella man, joins me. That is, my friends, a show. I'm Steve Bunce, and this is 5 Live Boxing. So welcome to a special edition of 5 Live Boxing. In the last 7 or 8 minutes, Joyce has become the first man to stop Joseph Parker. It was a pulsating, brutal, savage fight here in Manchester. And I was watching it with Carl Frampton. He's with me now. Carl, first of all, what's your immediate reaction to what we witnessed there during the 10 and a half rounds?
I think it was just a kind of coming-of-age performance, whatever you want to call it. It was, from start to finish, the best performance we've seen from Joyce yet. He did get nailed a few times, well, more than a few times, but without trying to contradict myself, his defence was actually better than it had been.
Much better. I've never seen anything like it from him.
And we talked about it on our Indigo, that it was a more clever performance, really, from Joe. We didn't think we could see that. We thought he'd one style and it was never going to change, but certainly he's working on improvements. But from start to finish, the finish was outstanding as well. What a shot.
And before we completely go overboard and praise Joyce, which was brilliant, Joseph Parker showed guts and heart and chin tonight and still believed he could win. Yeah. Seconds before that crushing perfect left hook dropped him. That was some night of courage tonight.
Just from the second round, it looked like he was exhausted.
Yeah, it looked like.
And that was the pressure that Joyce was applying. At the end of the second round, Andy Lee had to give Joseph Parker a kind of a motivational speech. It looked like he was feeling sorry for himself at times, but he rode out the storm and he stayed in there, and he even got up from the shot.
He beat the count,
but it was absolutely the right thing to do to stop the fight. He was exhausted and hurt, but I mean, such bravery shown tonight from Parker. Let's
just reiterate what we were watching here tonight. It's a fight that I said was perhaps too good to be true. A fight that I questioned both of them for taking it. Joyce was the number 1 contender and unbeaten with the WBO. And Joseph Parker was the number 3 contender, so the number 2 contender with the WBO. So they were number 1 and 2 fighting each other, which is absolutely rare in boxing and almost non-existent in heavyweight boxing, because they know they're just going to wait out and they'll get a crack at something. So they decided to fight each other. They opted to fight each other. They did what a lot of other heavyweights, not just in the last 20, 30 years, but going back in history. They fought each other. So that's why they did fight each other to a standstill. Even though Joyce was dominant and had clearly won the fight, the rounds had something about them. There was a lot of Rocky in there. Is that fair comment?
Of course.
Like one guy would miss with a shot and the other guy would land a shot. There was blood everywhere.
It was mad. Some of the shots, I think some of the best shots that were landed in the fight, probably if you look at 10 of the best shots that were landed in the fight, Parker landed 9 of them.
Now, that's a great point you made. And you made it when we were talking afterwards to David Hay, as you say. So let me just reiterate that. Of perhaps the 10 best shots in the fight, let's use the final left hook as one of those 10, maybe the best.
The other
but the other 9
belonged
to Joseph Parker. Yeah. How mad is that, Carl? I mean, that's almost ridiculous.
And every time he done something, so every time he landed something good, he didn't even have time to admire it because he just hit up the head with a jab from Joyce. There's no effect, zero effect. Clinical, like a really, really good, destructive, a bullying job. That's what you do. If you're a bigger man, stronger guy, that's how you impose your strength and size.
But then he also, certainly in the first 2 or 3 rounds, when Joseph Parker was at his fastest and fiercest and most dangerous, there were several occasions in the first 2 or 3 rounds, and we saw them in slow motion at the end, because we were in that privileged position in our BT studio, where he leant away from the shot. So he'd get half clipped with a shot, Joyce, and then he'd move away. We haven't seen that.
We've never seen that
Amateur
before.
or pro?
We've never seen it before. We've never seen him leaning. We've seen him like leaning forward and just marching forward. The fact
We've seen him marching. We've seen him leaning into punches, maybe.
The fact that he was able to avoid some shots tonight was obviously credit to his team. There is some improvement going on. I didn't think we'd see it.
I think there's a massive improvement going on. So we're just going. We're working our way back through the corridor, and I'm not sure whose room we're going to get to first. It might be Joseph Parker. It might be Joe Joyce. We're hoping we're going to get access to both of them. There's no guarantee, especially Joe Parker.
Yeah.
In a bit of a state, in a bit of condition.
Joyce is
Bod,
first
whose dressing room was that? Joe. I think he's expecting us. Thanks, boys. We're going to try and get in with Joe. Bod, one of the finest men who's on the scene, is there. Let's crash through. So we're in Joe's dressing room. The BT are in here filming, but we're in position. We're in one position. Frank Warren's in here as well, so we're okay. First of all, Joe, we watched some of it in slow motion, some of those early rounds, and the way you were blocking shots, avoiding shots, that was a totally different. That was Juggernaut Mark II tonight, Joe. That was a different Joe Joyce.
Really? Well,
a better Joe Joyce.
Yeah,
by a million miles.
I think I'm always improving.
But listen, even if you're improving, you didn't fall into any of his traps in the first couple of rounds. You were moving away, blocking shots. It was great.
And listening to Salas and Steve in the corner there, they were giving me tactics throughout. And yeah, it was a tough fight because he kept on stepping back and hitting me with shots and coming forward, hit me to the body. And it really pushed me all the way to the end because he, even though he was taking shots, he was still coming back with 2, 3, 4 shots to the body and to the head. But I like to watch it back and see, analyse it.
Were you surprised at how much he took? I know there's pride at stake and he's got his best friend Tyson Fury at ringside and he's a good fighter. But there were times there where he just kept taking and kept coming back at you. Did that surprise you, Joe?
No, I knew he was a great fighter from watching his, we did a lot of review of all his fights and stuff, me and my team, like picking apart some things. Salah sent me loads of clips to work on and stuff, so we knew what he was going to bring, and he's a tough fighter. So I just raised my level, and I take myself to Vegas to get the best training, etc. So it pays off.
Frank, let me bring you in. Joe talks there about raising his level. I think it was more than that. That was a different heavyweight. That was a smarter heavyweight, just an all-round clever fighter
I've got
tonight.
to say that. First of all, Joe Parker is a seasoned pro. He was world champion. He's coming off a run of about 6 or 7 wins.
He's been in with 4 genuine top 10 heavyweights.
Never, ever been stopped.
Absolutely.
He's had 14 fights. That was his 15th fight tonight. People forget that.
Yeah.
And that's a major
KOs.
step. And it's a major step up for him. No doubt about that. It's a major step up. And he handled it. And it didn't pan out how I thought it'd pan out, because I genuinely thought that, he would be a bit faster, Parker, but he was beating him to the jab. His jab was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, he basically broke him down with a jab, broke him down, and he was and you can see at times it was only his courage that kept him going. And he took a couple of good
that
shots.
That warrior spirit kept him coming.
I mean, you took some great shots. You took a couple of right uppercuts that were like massive shots and a couple of big rights and left hooks. Did he actually ever hurt you, Joe? I know you're honest. Did he actually ever hurt you?
Yeah, there was a couple of shots, like a couple of body shots and my shots on my head. I can feel the bruises and stuff. So he hit me with good shots. And as I cooled down, I'm starting to feel myself
a bit more as the adrenaline goes.
Yeah. So it's a tough fighter, yeah.
And that final shot, I mean, have you seen a replay of the final shot? I'll ask the pair of you. It's not just a left hook. It's a set-up left hook. Dropped him behind the guard. It's quite a staggering shot. It's an inch-perfect shot, Joe Joyce.
I enjoyed that replay of that.
The timing was unbelievable. And listen, what's important now is the fact he's the interim champion. And the reason he's the interim champion is, the last 2 fights he had, Usyk. One, the fight when he beat Joshua the first time, that was the mandatory. The last one was a voluntary against Joshua. So now he's the mandatory. That's what this was all about tonight, which means they got nowhere to go. Now Tyson will probably fight.
Nowhere to run.
Nowhere to run, absolutely right. But Tyson will probably fight Usyk in the spring. I'm quite sure he will. And whoever is left standing there with those belts, got to
he
fight
gets
him.
the crack by the end
and
of
that's
next year.
what it's all about. It was
Getting in that
important,
position.
and that's why it was done. And you know what? no one deserves it more than him because the work that he's put in. And he does. I know he goes off to Vegas. He's training hard out there. I mean, I think he's just from the guy that I met when you signed us. He's a different man.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
Much more relaxed, and I think you're more comfortable in yourself, in my opinion.
Now, it's only hypothetical, but if Usyk's watching that somewhere in Kyiv tonight,
he wouldn't want it.
Yeah, that's going to be the question. I'll ask you first, Joe, because you've just got your answer, and I'm on your side. What do you think Usyk will make of that? I know you've shared the ring with him for 15 minutes in the World Series of Boxing. That was a long time ago. You were both different babies. What do you think Usyk would have seen when he watched that fight tonight?
I think he would have analysed it, and I think he probably would have think I'd done well, but maybe he was looking to see where he can work out the game plan for me and.
Well, he ain't going to out jab you.
He ain't going to knock him out.
He's not. I don't think he knocks out, and he's not going to out jab you. So he's going to have to come and get underneath your jabs, in my opinion, to do anything. And if he does that, I think he gets in trouble with you.
And so, Joe, we know it's not going to be Usyk in April or May, or we assume it's not going to be Usyk in April or May. On the Joe Joyce Christmas shopping list, who's on that list? Give me a couple. Who's on the Joe Joyce wish list?
Well, all the guys at the top level. There's
you're in a circle now, as you told me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Fury, Joshua, maybe Dillian White.
Any of them. If you look at his record, he stopped them all.
Yeah.
He's a punch. He can punch. He's a big puncher, and he's quite fast tonight. Because you come in a bit heavier. I thought he was going to be. I thought the extra weight would slow you down a bit.
Yeah, I was a bit conscious of that when I was looking at the scales. I was like,
yeah.
I thought I might have lost a bit, but.
So, Frank, what is the plan? We talked about him having a couple of days off, literally.
A bit of time out, and we're going to go sort of March or something like that. If it suits, if he's, whatever Joe wants to do. He'll fight in March. That's what I'd like to see him. Keep him busy. Don't want to be sitting about on his backside.
And Frank, let me just ask you this one question. Where are we at the moment with the fight that everyone's been asking this question for 5 weeks? Where are we with it?
We're going to have a meeting on Monday, and we've no then.
And he's in theory involved with that now.
Well, of course,
he's on the major edges.
He's the interim champion.
Yeah. It's good nice Manchester, Joe.
That's what the planning was all about. That's what we planned for and worked for.
Well done, Joe. I mean that. Yeah. I mean it was a pleasure and a privilege to watch that tonight.
Yeah, I enjoyed
great watching him. Thanks. Frank, thanks very much. Joe, thanks very much. You get ready for the press conference, and also in case you've got to give bloods and stuff. Carl, let me just say that I think Joe Joyce has every right to be happy, and he is happy. And I think it looked to me like Frank Warren was a little bit not shocked, but a little bit like, wow.
Yeah.
Has that really happened?
Yeah.
Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, and I think that you're right. Frank was surprised that Joe could have had that performance in him a little bit. I think because it was just something that we weren't expecting. It was so one-sided. I think the scorecards were a lot closer than they should have been. But Joyce was his demeanour compared to Frank's, it's like a water-off duck. It just takes everything in a stride. This guy's ready. He's ready for the top.
He never. You saw Joe there. He acknowledges that there were good shots that caught him. He acknowledges. He praises Parker. He does just about everything. I mean, I'm still processing it, as are the people here inside the corridor. We're just getting directions, hopefully, to go and see if we can find Joseph Parker. Bod, where's Bod's going to take us. Bod's taking us. Soundman's got to come with me. Is that all right? Thank you. Thank you. Joe's just getting his treatment. Joe, first of all, you're okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. Fantastic. Always.
What a great fight, Joe. I mean, I didn't see anything you could have done differently.
Listen, I just got beaten by a big man today. It's all learning and more things to work on and come back stronger. Yeah, not beaten by a big man today, but if I could fight him again, it'd be awesome in the future.
You were in every round, even rounds you lost, you were in. It was a competitive, hard, grueling fight, Joe.
Listen, competitive, grueling. We threw a lot of punches. I just wish I could, wasn't able to stop the fight and carry on, but the ref did his job, and I'll come back stronger.
And you're in this dressing room now, surrounded by your family, your mother's needling your shoulders. It must be lovely to know you're surrounded by people that love you, Joe.
it's just at the end of the day, it's just a fight, right? And I still got all the support here, and it's amazing to have family and friends here supporting me even though it's a loss.
When he left the arena, they were on their feet, chopping, cheering and clapping, and patting him on the back. He got a standing ovation leaving the arena. That's the fight he put in today.
It was amazing, Joe. It was a privilege to watch that from my position. It was a privilege.
But you know what it shows? It just shows I got more to work on with Andy, you know. And even though we had a game plan, I said if I executed it well, it would have been nice. But, you know, I made mistakes and I'm still learning and still growing as a fighter. And I'm proud of the performance and we put on a hell of a fight. And I wish we can do it again in the future.
Joe, we all make mistakes in life, son. Tonight you showed us how to put right some wrongs and do what you did. You were brilliant tonight.
So it was a great fight. And congratulations to Joyce. He put on a hell of a fight. Big, strong man. And may he do well in the future, but it'll be good to come back after this.
Joyce, pleasure talking to you. Do your stuff. I'll speak to you later on, brother.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. See you later. I've got Andy Lee now. Andy, let me just ask you. Carl Frampton came up with a great point. Carl Frampton said that the 9 of the 10 best punches landed in that fight were by Joseph Parker. It's a great point that Carl's made. It's probably the first smile you've had. It's true.
It's the first time. Carl is one of the best pundits and best boxing brains out there. This has hurt me. This hurt me. This
I can tell.
Hurt me. We had a plan. Listen, I know best laid plans. You know, God laughs when you make plans. We had the plan. When he did it, it worked. When he didn't do it, he got hurt. And we have to credit Joyce. We have to credit Joyce because he stopped us from doing what we wanted to do. When Joseph kept his shape, side on, used his jab, used his feints, stepped to his right, and then landed his shots and exited low. When after you finish your punch, roll out low. He was successful. When he didn't do it, he got caught every time. It's as much to do with what Joyce did well as much to do with my Joseph Parker didn't do well. So it's very discouraging. I wish now I'm thinking about all the training we did, and wish I could have drilled another 25 times, every day, because it only becomes instinctual. We have only had 2 fights together before this. He's
Absolutely.
I don't want to say. I didn't want to fight Joyce. Now, I'll say this now. I didn't want to fight Joyce because I know what he is. You know
what he's capable of.
I know what we're up against. But when they said this is the fight, I said this is the fight. We're trying to win it. We're trying to win. You can win. I know. And if we run it back again, he might win. Lessons learned, but too late. Too late.
You can have a break. You can have a break. Andy, I can tell it's a bit emotional in here tonight. I'm going to leave you with Joe and his people. Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
No.
Only for you. This interview's only for
No,
you.
I appreciate that.
Only
I really
for you.
do. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks. So I'm now out of that dressing room and Carl. I couldn't say too much in there, but Joe's got his eye stitched and blood still coming out of the stitching, and his left eye's nearly closed. That's on the right. His left eye's nearly closed. His mother was massaging his back. The rest of the family were around, and they were trying to keep things upbeat, but it was hard now. And Andy Lee was unbelievably emotional. Just shaking his head and getting close to me. But what Andy Lee said, and I know you'll understand this, he said that when we were doing what we worked on, things were going our way. It's just that Joe Joyce makes you do things that you don't want to do.
There was occasions in the fight where Parker was landing great shots, 2 or 3 monstrous shots, bouncing off Joe's head, just as Parker tries to get off to the side and walk away and get a bit of a rest or a wee bit of space, he gets hit with 2 jabs from Joe. It's like, it's got to be so, what? How do you do that? It's got to be.
And also, Carl, I'm sure you've hit guys. You could drop and hurt people, even as you moved up through the levels. You hurt basically every fight you fought, maybe until the last fight when you're up at a weight you shouldn't have been at, maybe. But when you catch a guy, not with 1 shot, but as you said, with at least 9 or 10 really good shots, and his knees don't buckle, and you don't see a change in his face, that must destroy you. Not at night when you close your eyes, when you're going back to the corner for the 60 seconds.
It's never happened to me before. I don't think I've hit anybody that clean and they've still been up. Like, if you're hitting them that clean, normally it's the
referee
jumps in or they drop their knee or something anyway, but it's just it has little to no effect on this guy, and it's bizarre.
That is a separate conversation to have one day about how that might affect him in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But you were standing there when I was talking to Joe Joyce. It's perfectly clear. Sometimes you forget he's just been in a grueling fight with someone. Let's talk now, just briefly, because it's getting late here in the bowels of the Manchester Arena, or the AO Arena, as it's called now. Let's talk. There was a lot of talk there about Usyk, and I think we all agree it's a tricky fight for Usyk, even if he were to accept it. Joe Joyce has talked about wanting AJ, it turns out, and Frank Warren said, that's not a bad fight if I could make it, which is obviously a joke about the situation he's under at the moment. And but then also other names being thrown out there. Deontay Wilder's being thrown out there. Dillian White's being thrown out there in that fight in April and May of next year, when Joe Joyce gets back in the ring. Do you expect it to be a top opponent, or do you expect it to be almost like a homecoming? What's your gut feeling,
sure.
Carl?
It depends who's available. You'd want it to be a top. You want to keep going up through the levels.
They'll come. The fans will come.
Of course they will. And I think he'll bring a lot more fans to any fight that he goes to after a performance like that. But I don't know. Before the last fight against Hammer, there was talk of a Wilder fight.
Yes.
And I had said, stay away from Wilder. He could hit too clean against Hammer. Wilder will take him out. But after that performance, I'd be welcoming a Wilder fight. I think that he goes through Wilder, he goes through Dillian White, all these guys. He could go through Usyk. Yeah. He could. That's how tough this guy is.
It makes it an ugly night for Usyk, doesn't it?
Yeah, go through is the wrong thing. It's not an easy night for Usyk, and Joyce could win.
Yeah. What a situation we've got. It's an interesting thing with Joyce, because we've all known about the talent, not just the amateur talent, but the World Series of Boxing, all those fights there, and the Olympic run. We've known all that, and we've seen the promise. But I think a lot of us have maybe been hoodwinked into believing he is a bit slow, he is a bit predictable, he is easy to hit. Well, sure, he might have a little bit of those three things as part of his flaws, so to speak. Maybe we judge him too lightly, but today he was fast, which obviously shocked Frank Warren. He was mobile, he was quicker, he was thinking, all things that, if they didn't shock me, it certainly made me go, wow, I forgot he could do that.
Well, which points to an improving fighter. And we talked about it on air with BT earlier on, that Salas had said to David Hay that when he's asked about his preparation, he says Joe is Joe. So we're all automatically assuming it's just going to be the same thing. But there was improvements there.
So listen, Carl, we're going to leave the corridors here. We've got Joe Joyce is very happy. He'll go to his press conference. Joseph Parker probably won't go for the press conference. He'll probably go off and have a checkup, which makes all the sense in the world. He's got plenty of cuts and bruises and grazes and stitches already in. But let's just touch a little bit on the fight that we've been promised and it's been talked about for 4 or 5 weeks. Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. Frank Warren's talked about Monday being the day, and Tyson Fury's talked about Monday being the day when the broadcasters and the teams will get together. But looking at Tyson Fury's face here at ringside, did you see a man who's fighting Anthony Joshua on December 3rd? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And we had the discussion earlier on walking into the arena, thinking, like, December 3rd, isn't that far away, really, for a fight that hasn't been made yet?
It's basically
of that magnitude as well.
8 solid weeks of training before you have the last week off. That's the way to look at it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would hope it could be made. It's the fight we all want to see, isn't it? Will it happen or not? I suppose we'll know. Probably would need to know this week, wouldn't we? This coming week. And Monday seems to be the deadline day.
Perhaps the fight we all want to see now, I'll be careful as I say, perhaps the fight we all want to see now is Joyce against Tyson Fury.
Well, that's what I said.
That's perhaps the fight we want to see.
Yeah, if that fight gets made, I'm happy to take 1% of all proceeds.
1% of a sort of maker's fee.
Yeah.
God, what a night it's been. But before we leave here, before we walk out into the sort of small hours here at the top of Deansgate, Amanda Serrano. She got the win. I thought it was comfortable. Maybe it wasn't vintage Serrano, but maybe after 13 years, 14 years as a professional, 46 odd fights, and that movement in weight, 25 pounds she's moved up and down in weights. Perhaps that takes a toll on you. She fought Mahfoud, so Mahfoud. I thought she won quite comfortably, although it wasn't vintage, but she won comfortably. What was your gut feeling?
I thought we've seen her in better performances, but
I think that's fair.
I think what happened was at the start, there wasn't really much to worry about with my food, and she got into this
She
kind
played
of,
for the first 3 rounds.
yeah, and not the power didn't affect her, and it was almost towards the end she'd give a few rounds away, maybe 1, maybe 2 at the max, but there was a moment at the end of the second round, at the end of the first round, sorry, where her coach says to her, "This girl can't fight," and it was almost like. Yeah. She need to be up for a fight, you know what I mean? Someone else, a tougher opponent, she's puts in a better performance.
But the thing is with Katie Taylor's, with Claressa Shields, and we've seen here with Amanda Serrano tonight, is that they can fight unbeaten women. I remember Claressa Shields fighting Christina Hammer, who was unbeaten at about 25. She won every second of every round. And Katie Taylor's fought really good fighters who have got versions of world titles. And she's won comfortably over 10 rounds, barely broken a sweat. And we saw here tonight, okay, she might have lost a couple of rounds because she surrendered them. But basically, she did it without really breaking a sweat against the girl who had to go flat out just to be competitive in the fight. They're in a different level. The top women are in such a high level compared to the other women.
A huge gulf in class.
Absolutely.
And she was fighting another world champion there. That was a unification fight. So, but it shows you that's where we're at. But the female boxing is improving all the time. And with people like Serrano and Katie Taylor and Shields and Marshall and all these top names, it's just going to keep getting better.
So, Carl, as we exit here, let me just explain. It's now nearly 1 o'clock in the morning. You're going off to bed because you're flying back to Belfast really early in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and watch, if I can, the fights that took place in Nottingham. I actually don't know the result of Maxie Hughes against Kid Galahad. I don't know the result of Hannah Rankin against Terry Harper. I want to go and watch those two, and I'll be back after a few hours sleep with the second part of this pod. The first part, if you like, was live and uncut, unedited, and a little bit, a little bit freestyle. We've got some good voices on it.
Very freestyle. But I have to apologise. I feel like I'm very tired here, Steve, and I may have talked a wee bit of nonsense. So
you're allowed to talk nonsense.
Been all right.
I specialise in talking nonsense. Carl, you've been brilliant. Carl, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure and a delight being with you. Who's playing football tomorrow? Daughter or son or daughter?
Little daughter. Yeah.
Daughter's playing football. I knew that. Let me just explain to people listening. Carl Frampton does the most amazing, ridiculous things. He flies in for a fight on a Saturday, and he might fly into Manchester, and the fight will be in Birmingham, but then he'll fly out from London. Sometimes he'll leave a fight at 12:30, 1:15. This is a true story. And his flight's at 6 o'clock, and I say, that's early. He said, no, it's not. The flight's not in Birmingham. The flight's in London. So you must have 2.5 hours kip sometimes just to get home to watch your daughter play football.
That's my little thing. Me and her do it, and I kind of made a promise to her that I'll always go to her matches if I can. So if I get a couple of hours sleep, then so be it. I can sleep when I get home after a match. But you better win when I do that. You know what I mean? It needs to be a win. I'm not coming home to get a tanking.
Former 2-weight world champion and quality flyer and father, Carl Frampton. Let's get out there. Seems nice and cold. Seems like a real Manchester winter evening as it's nearly 1 o'clock in the morning.
Let's get ready to rumble!
5 Live Boxing.